What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Quality Ball. My name is JT Aubrey. We are here again with Philip Fauntleroy. A lot to talk about today, Phil, so we're going to jump right into it. You know, we were supposed to talk about where we thought Chris Paul was potentially going, but he's already made his decision. He'll be going to the Houston Rockets. I know that I'm very surprised. I'm pretty sure you're pretty surprised. I know we both thought he was going to the Spurs and at the least going back to LA. So this is going to be very interesting to see what happens with Chris Paul and James Harden. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this trade?
Chris Paul going to the Rockets, I'm really concerned about it because he has to have the ball in his hands at all times. He runs the point. So it'll be very interesting to see if they can actually become a big two. I really don't think they can. I don't think they'll end up beating the Spurs. I still think they're the third best team in the Western Conference.
Right. And the Rockets gave up a bunch. They traded first team defense Patrick Beverley, former sixth man of the year Lou Williams, who had a phenomenal season in Houston when he got traded there halfway through the year. Second year Sam Decker out of Wisconsin, who was looking promising, and Montreal Harrell. So, and they also gave away their 2018 first round pick. I think this is a little much, to be honest with you. Houston, I think they gave away too many assets. And like you said earlier, how are James Harden and Chris Paul going to share the ball? They both ranked in the top 7 in ball domination, ball time of possession, like you said, and they combined for 16 minutes of ball possession per game, which is 3.5 minutes more than the second highest duo, which was LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. So think about how much time Kyrie and LeBron have the ball. 3.5 minutes more is going to be Chris Paul and James Harden. And the way they run their offense, I mean, are you going to move Harden back to the shooting guard? What were they? They were a 41-win team in 2015, 2016, and then when you move into the point guard, they were a 50-plus win team. So this is going to be very interesting because there's no way Chris Paul is not going to play point guard.
Yeah.
So this is going to be very interesting. What do you think about the time of possession, the ball distribution? Does this take them to a higher level? Are they the third best team in the league now, behind the Cavs and the Warriors, or are they behind the Warriors and the Spurs and the Cavs? What do you think here?
Just like I said, I think that they're still behind the Spurs. But when you talk about Patrick Beverley getting traded away, Patrick Beverley was a phenomenal defender, but so was Chris Paul. He just replaces Patrick Beverley. Lou Williams was also almost the sixth player of the year, and you can't really replace that.
Right.
And Sam Decker does have a lot of potential. He was a very good shooter, and Montreal Harrell is kind of just irrelevant right now. But
the first round pick as well.
Yeah, and the first round pick that's very significant, especially since, as we saw this year, college players are getting better and better, and they may even start coming out of high school sometime soon. Like, they're that good. So we'll see. I definitely think that this next draft could be very good, considering this past one was phenomenal.
Right. So then let me ask you this: if the Rockets are somehow able to land Paul George, then where do you think they would rank in the league? You know, Chris Paul, James Harden, and Paul George would potentially be the best big three in the league. I don't know if they would be the best team still, but I definitely think that would be the best big three. However, if they were to do this, they might have to give up their center, Clint Capella, which, he's only 23 years old, and he had a pretty good season last year. So do you think that would be worth it? Capella for George and maybe some other assets? Do you think they could share the ball between Harden, Chris Paul, and Paul George?
I think it'd be worth it because Paul George isn't necessarily a huge ball hog, and Clint Capella kind of just reminds me of like a DeAndre Jordan. He's more just there on defense. He's not doing much on offense for your team, and there are a lot of big men that can do that. If the Rockets decide to start playing defense, they could be the best team in the league if they got Paul George on their team. But who knows if Chris Paul and Paul George will make them start playing defense. I mean, they're clearly one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, and it's obvious you can't be in the top 3 on NBA teams if you just don't play defense. So if they play defense, they'd be better than the Spurs, maybe even the Cavs, but probably not the Warriors. But right now, I still would probably put them behind the Spurs, honestly.
Yeah, so let me ask you this then. Now that Chris Paul's gone, we know he's not coming back to LA. Where's Blake Griffin going to go? Oklahoma City? Boston? If he goes to Boston, I think that's where the most upside is. He's definitely going to get more touches.
It's funny you say that because I don't think he's going to either of those teams. I think he's going to Houston. I think he's staying with his buddy Chris Paul. I think it makes the most sense now. I thought Boston had the most upside before Chris Paul went to Houston, but now that he's made it clear he's going to Houston still has about $60 million left in cap space, so they can sign a big player like Paul George or Blake Griffin. And I think Nene is a little old. He's good, but he's a little old. And you could honestly run Nene or Blake Griffin at the center over Clint Capella.
So where do you think that would put them then? Do you think? Simple question here: if they acquire Blake Griffin too, do they make it out of the West?
No, obviously they don't make it out of the West because you're playing the Warriors, and I don't even know if they make it to the Western Conference Finals. I'd still put the Spurs ahead of them, honestly.
With Blake Griffin? I don't know about that. I mean, Paul George, Chris Paul, James Harden, and Blake Griffin.
Oh, no. They couldn't sign both of them. I thought you were just replacing Blake Griffin with Paul George. No, if they got all four of them, yeah, they'd definitely be better than the Spurs. But if you just replaced Blake Griffin with Paul George, I think it wouldn't make that big of a difference.
Either way, they're not. I don't think they're getting the Western Conference Finals, unfortunately, which is why I'm surprised Chris Paul didn't go to the Spurs. I know you and I both thought that, the Spurs need a guard. They have an aging Tony Parker. Patty Mills, he's okay, but he's not elite by any means. I think Chris Paul would have fit in perfectly, especially with Coach Pop and his offense. Chris Paul loves to distribute the ball. The Spurs are a pass-first team. So, a little confused on that, but let's move on here. What if Boston makes a run at Paul George? The Celtics have a ton of draft picks and a lot of young prospects they could offer to the Pacers. Between Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, and even now Jason Tatum, who they probably won't give up for under any means, but who knows? They can also offer up next year's Brooklyn Nets pick. So this could be a realistic possibility for Boston to make a run at Paul George. And if they do pick him up, I could see them beating out the Cavs. What do you think?
If they take Paul George, that's not the only player they're taking. I think that they will get Gordon Hayward in free agency, and Gordon Hayward will play for his former coach Brad Stevens because they have very good chemistry. So
you think they could get Paul George and Gordon Hayward?
I think they could, yeah. They just have to free up some cap space. Isaiah Thomas isn't getting paid much at all. They don't have a crazy superstar getting paid a ton. They just need to get rid of like a Marcus Smart, maybe a Jay Crowder. I mean, I'd definitely go pursue him, but I think the only way they get Paul George is if Gordon Hayward comes to the Celtics and Paul George decides to go with him, or vice versa. Right. Paul George gets traded for it, and Gordon Hayward's like, I want to go to the Celtics. Otherwise, I think he's going to stay in Utah.
Yeah, so little more Paul George talk here. He seems to be floating around basically every team in the East, but let's end with him going potentially to the Cavs. Let me ask you this: if Paul George goes to the Cavs, does that put them on the same level as the Warriors?
The Cavs lose in 6 if they get Paul George, because I still think.
Well, listen to this. Think about it. Last year, Game 3 was what? The Cavs were up 7 with 2 minutes to go, and they won Game 4. And Game 5 was close until Durant hit that pull-up 3. So I think those two games, Game 3 and 5, really could have gone either way. And the Cavs played pretty solid. And if they sign Paul George, I think that Cleveland Warriors, Golden State, if Cleveland acquires Paul George, I think that series is pretty up in the air. And I think that's what the league needs to see, because at this point in time, unless something huge goes down, I don't think anyone can beat the Warriors unless Paul George makes this trade, goes to Cleveland. What do you think?
I definitely think that the Warriors are gonna win 2 or 3 championships in a row if they keep their roster. But Clay could leave, but that's not what we're talking about. I really think that if Paul George goes there, I don't know, because the Warriors, the games they won, the first 2, and Oracle Arena were just absolute beatdowns. And then Game 5, they honestly won pretty easily in the fourth quarter. And I don't know.
And Kevin Love played very solid in most of that series, and they would most likely have to give him up for Paul George.
Definitely. So you kind of just replace Kevin Love for Paul George. And
however, it adds another defensive player who could guard Kevin Durant. Paul George is 6'9" and athletic, and he's lengthy. So you stick him.
Paul George would probably guard Klay Thompson.
I think Paul George guards Kevin Durant, so LeBron can guard.
Why would LeBron not?
So LeBron can guard Draymond Green. I mean, think about it. Draymond Green runs that offense most of the time.
Well, who's their power forward if they get LeBron. Paul George and they trade Kevin Love?
LeBron.
LeBron
plays the 4. PG
so
plays
then who's their 2?
PG.
So then who's their 3? No, you keep JR probably at the 2. You get PG at the 3, and you put LeBron at the 4. But that's a really shit shooting guard other than Game 6 or Game 5. That's a really That's a really bad shooting guard for an NBA Finals team.
I guess JR is pretty good. All right, so you think the Warriors are going to win 2 to 3 back to back. I disagree with that. I think if PG does go to the Cavs, there's definitely a chance. Let's just say that if PG did go to the Cavs and somehow Cleveland took the Warriors to 7 games and Game 7 was close, or even if they won, how many years, let's just say they took them to 7 and lost, how many years do the Cavs have? Because LeBron's going to be 33 in December. So how many more years do you think LeBron and the Cavs or LeBron has in general if Paul George does go to the Cavs? How many years will they have to win a ring?
I could see LeBron having about 3 or 4 more years to win a ring. And I do also think that as Cleveland as a team, I think that you're going to slowly start to see Kyrie be the Kobe Bryant figure when Shaq leaves their team, and the Shaq as in LeBron James. So I really think...
But Kyrie is nowhere near the player Kobe is, and he's too small to carry an offense by himself.
Kyrie's also 25 years old.
And he plays no defense. He's too small.
Kyrie's also 25 years old, so we'll see where that goes. He balled out in the NBA Finals to win his one game and lose that one game really close. He's a phenomenal scorer. He's probably got the best ball handling in NBA history. He can pass. You can go watch his passing highlights. I don't understand why you think that. He's such a good passer if he wants to be, but he just scores because he's a phenomenal scorer.
But he's not able to do both is the thing. He's not... Well, okay, let's just take this for example. What did the Cavs do before LeBron got there and Kyrie ran the team? Yeah, granted, he was 23. He was still he was still an all-star, and they didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, but they also had a bad team.
That's true.
They had a terrible team. They had Anthony Bennett coming in. Everyone thought he was going to be a superstar. He was just terrible. And then if they had Andrew Wiggins come in, who knows what he would have done with Kyrie, but we never got to see that. So
right.
Since LeBron decided to come and they decided to trade Andrew.
All right, moving on. Let's go into the NBA awards here a little bit. Russell Westbrook won the MVP. I know people really believe he deserved this, but hear me out here for one quick second. Russell Westbrook is not reliable down the stretch. He's not a reliable shooter. He turns the ball over. He's out of control. And he tries to pad his stats. And we've seen the film as evidence that he's padded his stats. And this is the 3rd year in a row, arguably, outside of Steph Curry's unbelievable year, that James Harden has been robbed of the MVP. He averaged over 10 assists. He was much more efficient than Russell Westbrook. He led his team to a better record. He took them further in the playoffs. I know the playoffs aren't a regular season award, but this is unbelievable to me because if we're giving Russell Westbrook, whose team was the 6th seed, the MVP award, Kobe Bryant should have 5 MVPs. He should have won one in 2004. He should have won one in 2006. He should have won one in 2007. And he has his one in 2008. So Kobe Bryant should have 4 MVPs. He's got 1 because he wasn't the best player on the best team. So I guess you can make the argument LeBron James should be the MVP or Kevin Durant should be the MVP. But you can't give the MVP award to the best player on a 6th seed who barely went over 500. who didn't even break the 50-win mark. You can't do that. So I don't know.
As much as I love Kobe Bryant, what you're saying is just nonsense, because Kobe Bryant did not average a triple-double any of his seasons, and he did not break one of the best point guard in NBA history's record. Are you kidding me? He didn't do anything like that.
When you hold the ball, when you dominate the ball for 16 seconds of the shot clock every time you bring the ball down court, and your job is to either get to the bucket and score a layup, or get to the free throw line, or dish the ball out. Russell Westbrook contested the least amount of shots out of any player in the NBA this year because he was trying to get rebounds. And his
He also had the most steals in the NBA.
And his centers would move out of the way so he could get open boards. Getting open.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Watch the film.
That's so
Watch
wrong.
the film.
They let him get rebounds so he can run the floor. Do you want your center to get the ball so you hit your point guard and then he moves at a fast pace?
I want my center.
No, you want your point guard to get the ball.
I want my center to get the ball, outlet it to Russell Westbrook, have him run down the court, and have my center trailing so I can dish it to him down the lane. I don't want Russell Westbrook going full speed ahead every play so he can turn the ball over 15% of the time and have a 4-on-5 going the other way. There's a reason they're with the 6th seed. There's a reason James Harden was the 3rd seed. So, I don't know.
15% is an overstatement.
Russell Westbrook is out of control, and he always has been. There's a reason Kevin Durant left. And
you're hating on his defense, and there's also a reason why he has the most steals in the NBA this year. Also, Kevin Durant gave him a huge shout out because he knows how good he is.
But okay, let me say I am not taking any credit away here from Russell Westbrook. He's a great player. I just believe that James Harden is more efficient and led his team to a better record. And if we're gonna give the MVP based off of previous years, then we need to be consistent. And James Harden or Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant or LeBron James should all have won MVP before Russell Westbrook because his team was a 6th seed. So, I don't know. It's a little frustrating. Stats can be very deceiving. And
well, I'm going to end with this. When you talk about MVP, it means most valuable player. We all know if Oklahoma City didn't have Russell Westbrook on their team, and the Rockets didn't have James Harden, and the Spurs didn't have Kawhi, we all know the Spurs might make the playoffs as a 7th seed. The Rockets probably won't make the playoffs. They might. And
no chance.
OKC doesn't get close. So obviously, if you want to say that MVP is most valuable player, it makes sense to give it to Russell Westbrook because he does the most for his team.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. They would have a worse record if he wasn't on their team. Then the Rockets would if they didn't have James Harden. They had the 6th man of the year. They had another possible 6th man of the year. They had a Trevor Ariza. They had a good team. Patrick Beverley, who was on whose first defensive team. I mean.
I know. I know. I'm not arguing the Rockets didn't have a better team than the Thunder if you subtract James Harden and Russell Westbrook.
Well, that's all MVP means.
If we're going to... Hold on. If we're going to give the MVP based on the most valuable player to their team, then LeBron James should win the MVP every single year.
But if you take LeBron off
simple.
of the Cavs, I think they're still in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if they're beating the Celtics.
Oh, the delusion.
Are you kidding me?
I'll have what you're having because
they have Kyrie Irving and they have Kevin Love and they have one of the best benches in the NBA, and everyone knows the East is a walkthrough. Are you kidding me? Do you really not think that?
Celtics? You
think they were going to lose to who they play first? You think they were going to lose to the Pacers? You think they were going to lose?
No. Well, I don't know because the Pacers only lost all 4 games by less than a combined 20 points. Every game was very close. Not to mention, the blasphemy. If Cleveland didn't have LeBron James, Boston would beat them. Toronto would beat them.
Toronto would not beat them. Boston is the only argument you can make. No, they wouldn't.
Washington.
No, they wouldn't.
Oh my.
No. Do you want to go look at Washington's bench? One of the most unproductive benches in the NBA this year.
Who's gonna distribute the ball for Cleveland without LeBron James?
Kyrie Irving.
No, we can't. Kyrie's not the passer LeBron is.
He's a point guard.
I don't know. We're going to have to leave it up to the audience for this one. Let's move on here. Defensive player of the year. You know, you thought it would be Kawhi. I thought it would be Draymond Green. I thought Draymond really deserved it this year. He's the leader of that Golden State team. He's extremely vocal. He arguably could have won it the last 2 years. I know Kawhi's a great defender, but Draymond is, in my opinion, and was the best defender this year. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think Kawhi got robbed? Do you think Draymond deserved it? Was it pretty close? Was it very arguable? Give me a short little answer on that.
Well, it's very apparent that when you're giving out the Defensive Player of the Year or just any of these awards, you're not going to give them back-to-back years to one of your players.
I agree with that.
To an NBA player. So I kind of think Kawhi got robbed, mostly because Draymond is on arguably the best defensive team in NBA history, and he does do a lot for his team, but he also has crazy defensive players on his team. So that's really all I have to say. It's just that I think Kawhi got robbed, and just like LeBron could have won MVP 2 years in a row multiple times, but they never wanted to give it to him. So
all right, moving on. Let's quicken these up a little bit. Give me a yes or no on if they deserve it, if they deserve the award here or not. So, Sixth Man of the Year, Eric Gordon, plays on the Houston Rockets. I go with yes. I go him or Lou Williams, arguably. Either one of them could have won. What do you think, yes or no on him?
I think yes on Eric Gordon, but I think if Lou Williams stayed with the Lakers, then Lou Williams gets it.
Back-to-back years?
Yeah, I mean he had better numbers when he was on the Lakers. He was arguably the Lakers' best player, and he was coming off the bench.
Oh, easily, absolutely.
Eric Gordon obviously had James Harden. He was playing. Lou Williams just took over the Lakers, but then he got traded, and then obviously they were going to give it to Eric Gordon.
Right. So, anyway, most improved, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Milwaukee Bucks. You thought that was going to be the case. I didn't think so, but, I can't say he doesn't deserve it. The man had an unbelievable year, and he, I was watching some tape. He really has improved drastically this year, so good on him. What do you think? I mean,
yes, his handles have increased, and his shooting, and just every part of his game. He's just so good now.
Right.
He can pass the ball. He's a 6'11" man running the point guard. I don't know how you don't give it to him.
Yeah, I gotcha. That's basically he led his team in every stat. So anyway, Coach of the Year. This one really gets me. Mike D'Antoni. I've said it once. I'll say it again. I don't know how you can give the Coach of the Year award to a coach who only praises or who only preaches one side of the court. The man doesn't know what defense means. His team plays no defense. He only draws up plays for offense. So I think Brad Stevens, this is the second year in a row Brad Stevens should have gotten Coach of the Year. Hasn't gotten either of them. And if not Brad Stevens, Eric Spoelstra should have gotten it. He took the 11-31 Miami Heat to a 500 record at the end of their 82 games. So again, Mike D'Antoni, not my vote. So pretty surprised he got this award. Moving James Harden to point guard is a great move by all means, but it shouldn't give you Coach of the Year award. What do you think about this one?
I don't agree with it. I definitely thought Brad Stevens should have won it, but I don't know, like you were saying, if Brad Stevens should have won it year before last also.
And Rookie of the Year, Malcolm Brogdon, point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. I really liked this kid. I didn't think he was going to get Rookie of the Year. Maybe it's because he's not on West Coast television enough and I don't get to see him enough, but I was not expecting it. It's hard to say he didn't deserve it. There were a lot of rookies out there who I thought could have gotten this award. So what do you think?
I don't think he deserved it because, like we said, Giannis led in every stat on his team. So how can you give that player Rookie of the Year when a player like Dario Saric took over for the Sixers when a potential best center in the NBA went down and took his place?
Or Jokic on the Nuggets.
I would have given it to Dario Saric.
Right. I mean, one of those two at least. Anyway, we're going to move into some NFL talk here. Phil, I'm going to break down my top 5 teams that I think are going to be going to the next season, and you're going to give me a little agree or disagree. So let's start it off here. I know they lost the Super Bowl last year, but I got the Atlanta Falcons at the number 1 spot on my power rankings. They've got a young, athletic defense. I still believe Julio Jones beats out Odell and Antonio Brown for the best receiver in the league. He led the league last year with 3.12 receiving yards gained per route run. And the only weakness I really see with this Atlanta team is like a couple players. Their second year outside linebacker, Devondre Campbell, he needs to get a little better this season. He played 550 snaps his rookie year, and he only recorded 15 defensive stops. But like I said, man, you got the former MVP Matt Ryan. I think he's going to have another phenomenal year. I could see him going back to back. His passer rating was 132.5, including the playoffs, and his overall PFF was 93.5, which was the highest of his career. So, and they got the tight end Austin Hooper. I think he could play a little better. But Alex Mack is arguably the best center in the league, and their right tackle Ryan Schrader is an unbelievable talent. And we both know these guys they've been getting a lot of credit as they deserve it. So, what do you think? Yes or no on the Falcons being number one in the power rankings?
I'm always going to put the Patriots in number one in my power rankings because they've got the best coach in the league. They've got arguably the best quarterback. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is better than him. I don't know. And they just run an offense that just seems to be unstoppable. And they've got Devin McCourty at safety, and they've got Malcolm Butler at cornerback, and they've got Dante Hightower at linebacker.
Let's move into that because I got the New England Patriots at number 2 in my power rankings. Tom Brady, he's the GOAT. Pretty simple. 99.3 PFF last year was the highest ever recorded since the stat has first existed. He only threw 3 turnover-worthy passes in 12 regular season games. So we all know how good this guy is. He's been doing it since he stepped into the league. He's got 5 rings. The guy's unbelievable. Not to mention they won last year without the best tight end, arguably the best tight end in the league, Gronk, and he's coming back healthy. So this team could be a 15-16 win team next year pretty easily if they can stay healthy. And Malcolm Butler,
I don't know if he's coming back healthy, which is the only problem. This is his second or third back surgery, so it's taking a toll on him.
Yeah, but what did he miss? 6 games last season?
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that who knows if Gronk is coming back healthy. He had his third back surgery. That can definitely take a toll on him.
He'll be on the field nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely.
So that you're already taking a step up. And their cornerback, Malcolm Butler, along with their safety Devin McCourty, they're unbelievable. So these guys have one of the best offenses in the league. They've got an unbelievable defense, and I see no reason why they can't make it to the Super Bowl unless my power ranking number 3, the Oakland Raiders, Raider Nation, with Derek Carr, who I think is going to be the MVP next year, can beat him out. And here's why. Marshawn Lynch going to rush for over 1,000 yards next season. There's only been 50 running backs in the history of the NFL over the age of 30 to rush for 1,000 yards or more in a season, and I think this number's going to 51. Derek Carr, like I said, is going to have a great season. There's a couple players who could step up. Crabtree needs to play a little better. But what do you think about the Raiders on my
Crabtree
number 3
actually
here?
had a great season last year.
He's so athletic. I don't think he played as well as he has in the past. I think he can be a little better.
He had a better season than Amari Cooper. He was arguably their best receiver on their team last year. He's obviously not potential-wise, but he put up better numbers than Amari Cooper. But I think that I disagree with you on the number 3 power ranking. I think that it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that they have the best chance of beating the Patriots next year.
You see, I don't even have them in my top 5. The Raiders have an unbelievable, probably behind the Dallas Cowboys, second best offense, and maybe the first best offensive line in the league. Donald Penn, Kalichi Osmeal, sorry if I butchered your name, Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, they're all very, very solid. And if the Raiders don't, like I said, if they don't make it to the Super Bowl this next year, they're losing in the AFC Championship to the Pats. And, Khalil Mack is a savage. We all know how good he is. Probably the best defensive end in the league. The 6'3" athletic specimen is the best edge rusher in the league. And he led all players with 96 total pressures. And he only trailed Von Miller in defensive stops among edge rushers. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Raiders can do. I was really excited last season until Derek Carr got hurt. But, like you said, it's going to be tough for them to beat out the Pats. So I'm going to give you my number 4 here. Dallas Cowboys. Give me a quick yes or no on that before I explain.
Yes, now, because in their last NFL draft, their one weakness, everyone knows, is their secondary, and they drafted 4 cornerbacks. So I guarantee you Jerry Jones was just like, one of them has to be good. Let's just draft them all, and let's hope they're good. So I really think that their secondary will be fixed, but if their secondary isn't fixed, there's no way in hell they're in the top 5 because they need a better secondary. I mean, you can't win games without secondaries.
And Jonathan Cooper, who's allegedly going to be playing left guard right now, needs to play better than he did last season. So that's going to be something we're going to have to wait on. But, I got Dallas at my number 4 spot because although their defense was a little suspect, Sean Lee's a great linebacker, but outside their defense, Dak Prescott, who had an unbelievable year, rookie of the year, is playing alongside the guy I think who should have won Rookie of the Year over him in Ezekiel Elliott, led the league in rushing as a rookie. That's pretty unbelievable. Not to mention you've got Cole Beasley and Dez Bryant, who both played pretty solid last year. I think Dez could have played a little better, but they both played pretty good, pretty solid, pretty well. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. I know they lost to Green Bay. It's just tough. These guys, they're young, but Dak and Ezekiel, they've both got a year of experience under their belt now. They both showed up in the playoff game for the most part. I mean, neither of them really choked in any means. So where do you see this team finishing next year?
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but they lost their guard, Leary, which was a huge loss this year. So
I did know that, yeah.
So the run game may not be as nice as it was. But honestly,
they've still got, I mean, they have probably one of the best, at least one of the best centers in the league, in Travis Frederick. He only allowed 9 pressures last season, and he hasn't allowed a single sack over the past 2 seasons. Not to mention it. Go ahead.
I think they get a bye this year, and then they lose in the playoffs again.
Yeah,
in the next round.
I might have to agree with you there.
And I think it's to someone like the New York Giants.
It's for some, right? I could see that. I could see the Giants making a run next year. I like their squad. However, it's tough to put a team in my top 5, or it's tough to make a top 5 without putting the Green Bay Packers in there. Aaron Rodgers, as far as talent goes, could be the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. Like I said, as far as talent, I'd say he's still at the peak of his career by all means. So you can never really count this team out. He had a 90.3 passer rating under pressure last year, throwing 13 touchdowns to only 2 picks when he was hurried. So clearly, regardless of how good your offensive line is, this guy can definitely get it done. Tight end Martellus Bennett also played very solid, and Jordy Nelson's always doing his thing. He's always swagging on everyone. So you can't ever not put the Green Bay Packers in there. That being said, their defense needs to get better. Their secondary was constantly exposed last season, and cornerback Ladarius Gunter played like an absolute, just didn't play well. I'm going to put it nicely. He didn't play well, especially in the playoffs, giving up 7 catches for 152 yards in the NFC Championship game. So this team is very up and down. What do you think about them on my number 5 spot? Like I said, although their defense is bad, tough to count out Aaron Rodgers in that offense.
I always say this. I honestly think that if Aaron Rodgers was put into the Patriots into the Patriots system, he'd be a better quarterback than Tom Brady, and he'd have more achievements than him.
Right.
So you could never go against him.
Right.
But they remind me exactly of the Dallas Cowboys, except their quarterback just isn't as good, but they have a better running back, so their backfield's probably about as good. They just don't have a secondary. And they do have a good defensive line, and they have a good linebacker, Clay Matthews, and their secondary is just terrible. And we saw that in the Dallas Green Bay game. There were so many touchdowns scored and so many DBs beat on deep balls.
Oh, yeah.
It was just Dak Prescott, all on Aaron Rodgers. It was unreal to watch. It didn't even look like it looked like a college football game. It looked like they were playing in the Big 12.
It was all offense, no defense. And like I was saying, this is where the Packers need to get better. Their only bright spots last season on D was linebacker Nick Perry and defensive end Mike Daniels. And Clinton Dix out of Alabama, I really like. I've always liked him. He played pretty solid too. What is it, his third year in the league? Second year?
Clay Matthews is great also.
Yeah, but Clay Matthews was hurt for a good chunk of the season last year.
Yeah, they had him back for the playoffs.
So they did, and he's going to be back this year, and he was a big part of their defense.
He always is.
He's always big.
He always is.
Always a big part of their defense. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm excited. I like to call myself a Raider fan, but I can't jump on the bandwagon if I'm being real. I'm with the Rams. However, I'd like to see the Raiders do big things next year, especially with Marshawn on their team, being in Oakland, born and raised in Oakland. So. Any final thoughts here on the NFL? Just who do you think's winning it all next year? Just plain and simple. Give it to me. Give it to me.
So in the NFL, there's always a team that just makes that run, and you just know they're winning it. And I think it could be the Giants next year.
Let me guess. Oh, I was gonna say the Giants. I knew you were gonna say that
because they just picked up Brandon Marshall, and they got a really good tight end.
And their
secondary is phenomenal. And obviously Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham Jr. getting nicer. They may have the best wide receiver core in the NFL, and their defense is good, like I said.
Right.
And if I'm gonna be real, and I'm gonna be one of those kids, I'm definitely gonna choose the Patriots because I just don't know who can beat them. I mean, definitely.
Right. Well, the Giants in the past have been their kryptonite. The Giants have been their kryptonite. So
yeah, they definitely have. But they picked up Chris Hogan last year. He was his first year on the Patriots, and he put up crazy numbers in the playoff game against the Steelers. They always just have that crazy player that just surprises you, and you just can't do anything about what Greg Popovich does with his team. So obviously the Patriots, but I hope to see the Giants win it.
I would absolutely love to see a Raiders-Giants matchup in the Super Bowl. That'd be very interesting to watch. I don't think anyone would see that coming. So, a lot of big things coming in next year. Unfortunately, we are out of time tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Quality Ball. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.